Despite the opinions of many people, the bourgeois government is not stupid. A new report has come out that the Department of Defense, or more specifically the Pentagon, has been funneling money to universities to do specific studies for them, much of it on human behavior and the recent history thereof. Now, the purpose of these studies is to conclude what would be the tipping point for social unrest in the United States and the rest of the world. What are the key indicators that would show or what would spark such unrest? Like they're trying to build a model for human behavior to try to determine social unrest both in the United States and around the world. And this is all being done so they can try to predict when these things will happen so that they can react with specific interests in mind. The real purpose of this is to be able to have the police or the military control the public in case of an emergency, or at least what they perceived to be an emergency. Now they're well aware of what can trigger this. This program did begin in 2008 with the global collapse of capitalism. This is when that real concern that there would be a massive global unrest. I mean, that definitely would happen. If one thing can cause global unrest, it's, well, a massive imbalance or at least a shock to the economic system. It's part of the Department of Defense Minerva Research Program, and its specific purpose is to improve the Department of Defense's basic understanding of the social, cultural, behavioral, and political forces that shape the regions of the world of strategic importance to the U.S. In other words, all these programs are intended to determine what threats to U.S. hegemony, what threats to U.S. imperialism will appear, and how to best deal with them. We do know that each society has its own particular characteristics, and each have their own different flavors of desires for freedom from certain forces, primarily ones from U.S. imperialism, which this study is directly for. Now, they did notice that it was the global collapse of capitalism, the economic destabilization of what was once primary imperialist power in the world. So it definitely does show that this is being done for the benefit of the capitalist class, the ruling class, those who wish to maintain an absolute or as best as possible profitability internationally. According to reports for the period 2014 to 2017, Cornell University is leading a study for the U.S. Air Force of scientific research with the intention of developing a model of the dynamics of social movement mobilization and contagions. Meanwhile, what will be the point in which people will revolt? It is using digital traces, social media data, from various recent events. They specifically mention to identify individuals mobilized in a social contagion and when they will become mobilized. It also has another program called Who Does Not Become a Terrorism and Why? And what the purpose of that is it kind of conflates non-violent political activists with violent political activists. Basically, it's trying to get in their heads and to try to understand, where the line is, what tips people from being non-violent activists to being violent activists, outright, physically resisting the repression that's being brought upon them by the government, perceived and real, very likely real. In every context, we find many individuals who share the demographic, family, cultural, and or socioeconomic background of those who decided to engage in terrorism, and yet refrain themselves from taking up armed militancy, even though they were sympathetic to the end goals of the armed groups. The field of terrorism studies has not, until recently, attempted to look at this control group. This project is not about terrorists, but about supporters of political violence. What I think this definitely does show is that they are trying to look for a line how far they can push people, or what specific things would trigger someone from going from being just a regular activist to an outright revolutionary, or at least taking up arms and being violent against the state. And I believe that's genuinely what really is about the study here. Now, one of the things that has been released about this is that the Pentagon has been funding this through post-secondary education, universities, colleges, etc. But those places don't know that that's what they're being funded for. They're only sending little pieces out here and there under different names, and it's all being collected together and being put under one Pentagon program. In other words, they're being quite sneaky about it and using academia, using students to do this. They're essentially using students, university students, who have usually traditionally been at the forefront of bringing forward new ideas and resisting old ideas to help them carry this out. I think this does definitely demonstrate to us that the ruling elite, the capitalist class, is concerned that there is a destabilization of their system, globally as well as domestically. I mean, they know that there hasn't been a recovery in jobs. They know there hasn't been a real recovery to the economy. Their profits are back, but they know the stability of the system is under threat, and nothing causes unrest like unemployment. This shows that they know it's coming, or at least that they're definitely afraid it's going to be here, and they're trying to find out when the exact tipping point might be that they're going to have to start sending in forces, or when they're going to have to install martial law and just turn totally fascist. I think that's exactly what they're trying to get at here. Some of the studies even take place with the third world, like what is like their tipping points, or what are their social influences, and how their publics are going to react to the various crises that are going to be forced on them. Economic crisis is just like everything else. The higher the class you are, the less it affects you. I mean, in the United States, in the first world, we get, some unemployment, and then people go on like unemployment, welfare, and then fight to retain those until jobs come back. Meanwhile, in the third world, these kinds of economic recessions, these crises, cause starvation. They cause mass hunger. Tens of millions of Chinese migrant workers were thrown out of jobs with the 2008 crash, which is substantially worse than what happened to us here in the first world. And what they're also trying to determine with this is at what point can a particular third world country, an occupied country, a country controlled by imperialism, will snap and start resisting. At what point will the country start turning militant against imperialist aggression? Or what point are they going to start going against the interests of the United States or the imperialist powers? And I think that speaks to complete volumes about what's going on, and shows that they're not just afraid of this happening. They know it's going to happen, and they believe that it's only a matter of time, and are trying to be able to prepare for it as much as they can. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.